There are many things to be angry about, and every one of them are justifiable, and every one of them is fully within our control. Allow me a couple of minutes to lay out some groundwork here, and you'll see a solution that you've probably realized all along. The decision to be angry about something comes from within. If we've gone so far as to believe that somebody else can make us angry, then we've actually given up the power that we have within ourselves. And we can take that power back by just coming to the realization that what we think affects our outcome. So if we choose to accept somebody else's putting their anger on us or their need for their anger on us, then we can just as easily, with some practice maybe, choose to not accept the anger. Now, how does that work? What's the solution to this? So we're stuck in this anger and we want to change that. So the first part is in that we want to change that. Now, what I've discovered through years of coaching is that we've got a very strong subconscious, and our subconscious runs on autopilot. So while we think we want to change it, no sooner do we start to change it, and our subconscious habits, patterns jump in and actually block us from moving forward to something that we know is better. That's something you can easily prove to yourself. But once we jump that first hurdle, then we come to realize, okay, so if my current thinking is causing my current anger and my inability to manage my anger, never mind manage, get rid of my anger, then what do I have to change in my thinking in order to not have anger? So in order to be angry, we have to look at the world as being wrong. There has to be something wrong with the world or the people in it or the way the people are acting or the things that are happening. Now, if we think that things are happening to us and we have no control in that, again, we've given up power. But if we can accept that no matter how difficult it might seem, that we actually do have power over everything, now we are able to have different thoughts. So try out this little experiment. I've covered it in some of my other videos. But to make it useful for you specifically now in this video, if you view everything as being broken and damaged, how do you feel inside? And of course, stress, anger, unease is a natural reaction. But just by simply changing our thought, just experiment with a moment. You can always go back to anger, but experiment for a moment. What happens when we change our thinking to, I'm exactly in the right place at the right time and everything is working out just exactly as it should. It might not look like it right now, but I know it's going to work out. Now, that might take a bit of practice to get around to that way of thinking because we've got so much practice in what's brought us to a point where we have no control over our anger. But once we can take a step back and realize, okay, I've got a very established way of thinking that's brought me to the result of having this unmanageable anger, and I'm starting to feel that I want something better than that, then I can reach within myself to use the powers that I've got of my own thoughts, because I still have control over my own thoughts. And if I choose to think of the world differently, so let's use an example. I'm angry at Bob because he's an ass. And I say, okay, well, what if I change that thought and think, well, Bob's just trying to be Bob because that's who he is. That's who he was born to be. He might be a bit of an ass and he might be worse because he's being antagonized. But at the end of the day, isn't he just trying to get through life the same as everybody else? So what happens when we step back from our position of being angry about this and just look at it from the perspective of, that's Bob, that's just who he is, but why is it affecting my life? And when we can start to step back from all the things that we're angry about and consider that we might be wrong in our perspective and that we can know that we're wrong in our perspective because we're killing ourselves with the feelings that we're bringing upon ourselves with the anger we're generating from our own thoughts. So when we can start to experiment and just say, okay, well, what happens if I step back from this? What happens if I say, okay, well, I can deflate my ego a little bit. I can say, okay, well, maybe I'm looking at things the wrong way. Then we've already taken a huge step forward into managing our anger. And once we become comfortable, and what I mean by comfortable is not just believing somebody else's theory about how to handle anger, but just to experiment with it. And as you realize through your own experimentation that every time when we step back from things, then we improve the world. I'll give you a short story here to kind of round this out. Years ago, I was installing a railing. I used to have a welding shop, fabricating shop, and I manufactured railings. And I went to a job on a Saturday where a tile guy was installing, unknown to me, and he didn't know I was coming to install a railing. And as soon as I went in, he just blew up. And instead of going into his anger, all I did, I left, I went out to my truck, I organized some tools, I figured, well, at some point, I'll be able to go and do my work. And after about 15 minutes, he came out just to find some tools or something. And I went up to him and I said, sounds like you're having a really tough day. And the reaction just blew me away. He just looked at me and he started crying. Here you got like a 30-something-year-old guy who just breaks down in tears. And so if it would have been easy to get, if I was the type of person who was going to get into a fight with somebody or something, it would have been easy. But it was just, I understood that his anger wasn't at me. It was about something going on in his life. And so he spent the next 15, 20 minutes talking to me about all the things that was happening in his relationship with an expanded family and that. And the end result was it gave him an opportunity to just gain some clarity on what was going on, what were some of the options, what could he do. I gave him some coaching on things that he could do to move forward. And that's the way it is with anger, is we're so bottled up with our feelings that we almost avoid, and this is the subconscious practice that we've got of being angry, is that we don't see that the solution is also within ourselves. But once we can step back and say, okay, well, what can I think differently? What can I do differently? Then I start to gain new control over my life. And at first, it's difficult to give up, to say, even to recognize that, hey, I might be wrong. Maybe the way I'm thinking is wrong. That's a very difficult step for people. But once we climb over that, now we start to see new perspective. It's like going up a mountain, wandering a trail. And we don't see what's around that corner until we take those steps. And once we take those steps, then we're in a position to see something new and we have new perspectives and we can move forward. So if this is useful for you, if you understand if you're ready to explore different ways of thinking, different perspectives, then you'll like the 24 Life Ingredients, because all it is facts about life, things that we already know because we were born with them. You test them in your own gut. Does it feel right? Is this nonsense, or does it actually make sense? And if it's making sense to you at a core level, then check out all the other videos that I've created. These are just bit by bit, simple things that make sense, that life teaches us, that we can test in our own being, we can test with our own gut instinct, and we move forward. And in no time at all, not only have you managed your anger, but you've managed to get rid of your anger and replace it with peace and happiness as you find new purpose in life. Let me know what you think of the video. Join us for our weekly conversations that all you have to do is send me a message that you want to get an SMS message 30 minutes before the calls or whatever works for you, and join our group conversations where we can explore different things about creating better lives. In the meantime, I hope that you found this video useful, and all the best on your journey.